Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ivan Kopas, and today I would like to talk to you about four technical roles at AWS that have various similarities but also differences as well. Those roles are solution architects, technical account managers, AWS ProServe, and technical instructors. Now, why am I talking to you about this topic today? Well, because I've had a number of you reach out to me asking about these different roles, what's the best way to land these roles, and some insight around what it's like to be in those roles. So I want to make sure that you folks have a very clear understanding around what these four different roles are so that you can choose the one that's most aligned with your interests and your passion. I also feel like I can talk about this because I've spent over 5 years working for AWS at this time, and I worked in multiple roles within AWS. And as part of my joining of AWS, I joined within ProServe. I joined as a data architect, focusing on data lakes, and then transitioned into the ML engineer within ProServe. And then after that, transitioned into the technical instructor role. Now, throughout these 5+ years of working with AWS, I've conducted various interviews, 25 different interviews with candidates across different backgrounds, with candidates applying for different types of roles within ProServe and training certification. And I would like to share with you folks some of the interesting insights and help you feel more confident and more prepared for your interviews as well. So the first part of the video will focus on discussing these four different roles, and then the second part of the interview will be focused on what can you expect out of the interview, and what is the structure, and what are some of the tips and best practices to help you make sure you land that role by being a rock star during your interview. So let's dive in and let's talk about the first role I had in mind, solution architects. Now, if you take a look at the hiring page for solution architects, and includes some nuggets of information around what does it mean to be a solution architect. Now, if you take a look at the broad description here, it says, as a solution architect, you're responsible for creating scalable architectures that enable new services and new business models. In other words, you are going to be this trusted advisor working with different customers, AWS customers, and helping them come up with the best solution for different challenges that they run into. Now, let's take a look at an example of a role, a solution architect role, job posting, and I've highlighted some of the key elements that are going to help you understand what does it mean to be in that role. Now, this particular role is for senior solution architect working with generative AI startups. This tells you that you can be more generalized solution architect working with a variety of different types of services and technologies, or you can be a specialist SA or specialist solution architect where you specialize in this case, working with startups and also working with AI. Now, in this case, we see that it says senior solution architect. So what is all that about? As you'll come to find, you have three primary levels of folks who work in the field directly with the customers as solution architects. Same applies with technical account managers or TAMs, as well as ProServe and technical instructors. You have the base level or level 5, and then you have the next level, level 6, where you become a senior, and what follows that, level 7, is a principal. So as you get started as a, let's say, regular solution architect, you will be building your path, your technical depth and breadth and your experience, and building a case to get promoted into a senior solution architect, and then ultimately the principal solution architect as well. Now, as just a solution architect, your primary goal is to be as good of a trusted advisor as possible. As you start climbing that ladder and become senior, eventually principal, the level of responsibility you have increases, and the expectations in terms of the experience and the technical depth that you can go to increases as well. Now, the process of getting promoted, which maybe I can create a separate a separate video on that is quite rewarding. It can be challenging because it requires you a lot of to collect a lot of data points, and I went through that process when I worked in ProServe, going through from the ML engineer to senior ML engineer. So let me know in the comments if you folks would like me to make another video and specifically talk about the what the promotion and job change aspect of Amazon is. Now, circling back to the to this particular role, we see that as a, in this case, senior solution architect focusing on AI startups, you're going to help the customers make the best and sometimes most practical, most pragmatic decisions for them. Because in some scenarios, customers want as much as possible, but they sometimes try to bite more than they can chew. So you need to be that voice of reason for them that has their best interest in mind, and also helping them optimize, helping them prioritize different features as they navigate, in this case, the AI solution world. Now, we're going to also be building enduring relationships with the customers and be establishing yourself as their trusted advisor. This is a key aspect of being a solution architect. You have to be building that relationship with the customers so that they trust you, so that they rely on you, and they view you as a crucial resource in helping them bypass different challenges and problems that they run into. You're also going to help them successfully leverage cutting-edge AWS technology to, in this case, because it's machine learning-based role, to develop, train, tune, and deploy the next generation of Gen AI foundation models at scale. If you end up being a more generalized SA, or if you end up being solution architects focusing on other domains, this specific part of your role may be focused on that domain, that different domain. Now, as for any technical roles, you're also going to be expected to learn new technologies and keep your skills fresh. Now, we have many ways to accomplish that within AWS, within any of these roles. And there's multitude of training you can attend, various boot camps. We also have different technical field communities that consist of specialists in a particular domain. For instance, I'm a member of the AI and ML technical field community that offers various trainings to folks who are interested in learning more about a particular domain, in my case, ANML. Also helping customers solve some of the issues that they're unable to solve themselves, delivering talks at conferences and so on. So there's multitude of ways to continue upskilling yourself. You just need to have that drive, curiosity, motivation to go through it as part of this process. And then also you're going to be an advocate with the product teams, the AWS service teams. Because if you think about it, on one side, you have AWS customers that are using AWS services to build different solutions for their business. And then on the other side, you have AWS service teams that have a primary goal of building these services out, building new features, and prioritizing the work that they have, because oftentimes they have many requests coming in, so they need to prioritize the requests coming in from most and largest customers. They're going to be the largest users of those features. So as a solution architect, you have your ear with the customers and you are hearing what they're telling you about what is it that they need, what is potentially not available as a feature that would be really helpful to be there, what is a feature that maybe needs some additional support for some use cases, and then you're communicating that to the service teams so that they can best prioritize what needs to be built and understand what needs to be built. At AWS, we frequently work backwards. Of course, there's some scenarios where we kind of see where the industry is heading and we try and roll things out that will be helpful to the customers, but in most scenarios, we just listen to customers for them to tell us what is it that they need and then implement those features and services for them. So as a solution architect, you can be at the forefront of what the customers are communicating that these service teams will need to implement. Now, the remaining three roles, TAM or Technical Account Manager, ProServe, and Training and Certification, Technical Instructor, all roll under what's known as Global Services. And AWS Global Services is a team that has an overarching goal of accelerating the customer's cloud adoption and then supporting their long-term success in a variety of ways. So today, I'm going to talk about specifically training certification, technical instructors, ProServe, professional services, and the AWS support and managed services. Technical instructor will roll out under training and certification. ProServe specialist will be within professional services, and then the technical account manager becomes a member of the support and managed service there as well. Now, as the global services, you're getting involved in all the stages of the customer lifecycle, and that is potentially one crucial difference between the solution architects and the global service teams. Global service teams typically are looking to support customers end to end, while solution architects may be deployed as part of specific parts of the stages where the customers need assistance. Previously, when I worked in AWS ProServe, I was with customers from the design phase all the way through the solution being ready for them to deploy it to production environments. Most of the solution architects that I've worked with serve as trusted advisors that may be more present in some phases, like design phase, where the customer needs the most insights around how to combine services, what features to consider, building out the roadmap, while global services may be supporting customers throughout all the phases. We also see that if you are not based in US, Canada, various European countries, it's okay because global services is operating out of 51 different countries. So as part of what you hear next about these different roles, if some of these roles appeal to you, it is likely that you'll be based out of one of these 51 countries that you can apply for a role in. And as global services, we are focused on advising, removing obstacles, and helping the customers build their future on AWS. Now, similar to what we've done with assays, let's step through the roles of TAM, Technical Account Manager, ProServe, and technical instructor so we can better understand what are the differences between these. So as an example of a technical account manager, we see here that you're going to be working as part of the enterprise support. That's very, very common because throughout the different support levels that the customers can elect to use with AWS, the topmost, the most evolved, the most complex, the most beneficial support levels either give you access as a customer to a pool of TAMs or your own dedicated TAM, depending on which support plan you've utilized. So you're, as a technical account manager, you're always working in some capacity of providing support to the customers. We can see another word for global services here, another phrase for global services is AWS sales, marketing, and global services, as an example. Now, what we see here is some examples of what it is like to work as a TAM. So this is not a sales role. You're instead going to be the technical advisor and voice of the customers to organizations. So that sounds very similar to the solution architect, but again, as a TAM, you're much, much more involved into what the customer is looking to do, advising them on strategic direction that they may need to go in, and you're typically diving much deeper into their own business than a solution architect may. And again, this is not always the same in terms of all the roles, right? I'm just speaking how it usually plays out. In most scenarios, if you end up applying for a TAM role versus an SA role, you're more likely as a TAM to dive deeper into customers' business there. Now, if you take a look at some of the other requirements of what you're going to be expected to need to do, craft and execute strategies to drive our customers' adoption and use of AWS services. That is similar to the description we just read around the global services. Your goal is going to be to drive the revenue, drive adoption of AWS among the AWS customers. You're also going to be effectively representing AWS within a customer environment and driving discussions with senior leadership regarding incidents, trade-offs, support, and risk management. So if there is a disaster recovery that occurs where some of the solutions built, let's say, failed over a little slower than expected, you'll be involved in those conversations to understand what potentially could be improved and communicate any changes back to the AWS services. And then you're also going to be providing the advocacy and the strategic technical guidance to help plan and build solutions using best practices and proactively keep your customers' environments operationally healthy. So you're looking to provide some insights around if particular AWS services experience some issues. You're looking to be proactive in providing that insights to the customer so they can best prepare and react as opposed to just discovering those types of scenarios on their own. So again, you're working much more deeply with the AWS customer, and you're much more closely involved in the future of their business compared to what the solution architect there may be. Now, aside from the SAs and technical account managers, we also have the AWS ProServe, and that was the role, that was the organization type of global services that I got hired into AWS. Leave a comment below if you'd like me to create another video talking about what was that hiring process, what helped me get hired. There are a specific set of steps that I had to take to increase my odds of getting hired. And when I got hired into a similar role. I was hired as a data architect, but specifically focusing on data lakes. And my goal as part of that role was to work closely with the customers and implement solutions for them, help with design, but also implementation there. And as ProServe, you tend to dive the deepest on the technology side compared to SAs and the TAMs. Within ProServe, you're designated specialist, and you get hired into a particular specialty role, just like this one is for data architecture. Now, you can potentially work with your manager once you get hired to make any changes if you like. For instance, after I got hired, about 6 months after I got hired, I made a change to still work within ProServe, but be ML engineer. So specialize into machine learning and implementation of ML pipelines, deployments of models, hosting them optimally, and so on. So you can potentially make these adjustments, but you always have a specialty area. And the reason you have a specialty area is because you're expected to go dive very deep into the implementation side of things. Now, I worked for ProServe for about a little bit less than 2.5 years. And what you see throughout your time within ProServe is that the goal oftentimes is for you to be on shorter term projects because you're incredibly valuable as a resource and you want to be able to help as many customers as possible. So the optimal project times are around 10 to 12 weeks. Let's call it about 3 months. But of course, if the customer really likes you, really finds you helpful, they'll be requesting that you stay on their account and maybe just work on a different project. So one of the biggest financial services companies in the world that I was working with when I was in ProServe, I ended up working for them for over a year, far longer than that optimal 10 to 12 weeks timeline. But again, the 10 to 12 weeks is a sweet spot where you finish project, you're pretty efficient, and you move on to a different project, different customer. So within ProServe, you're expected to dive very, very deep. And unlike TAMs and solution architects, you're going to be spending the most on implementation, the most on the focusing on the keys on the keyboard. Now, with that, again, everything same applies around the focusing on learning skills, upskilling, and staying current with the latest trend there. So in this case, for the data architect, you're going to be focused for being the data analytics specialist. And you're going to be providing exceptional technical design and thought leadership. You're also going to be focusing on designing, creating data architectures and platform, and you will have an opportunity to learn from and collaborate with and educate some of the brightest technical minds in the industry today across different industries and architectures. So hopefully you can see this is by far the deepest into technology out of the current roles that we've considered. Just like the other two roles, it's a customer-facing role. So you're not going to be sitting somewhere in the basement. You're going to be spending time with the customers, mostly face-to-face nowadays. During the COVID times, we had some of the virtual work with the customers, but nowadays, most of these field roles tend to be face-to-face with the customers. And this is not to say that you'll be traveling all the time. Depending on the customer you work with, you may be traveling just 10% of the time, or you may be traveling 30%. It just really depends on what customer you end up working with. And these job listings, job postings tend to be pretty transparent around the percentage of time that you should be comfortable with traveling if you're asked to do that. So aside from that, some of the key responsibilities are you're going to be helping with design, with project discovery. You're also going to be, in this case for data analytics, building the data analytics applications to solve complex and ambiguous problems. And you're going to be implementing technical solutions that are secure, maintainable, scalable, reliable, performant, and cost efficient. If you're interested in kind of diving deeper into these different best practices of building on AWS well-architected framework is a great place to get started, and I'll make sure I include that link in the description of this video as well. And you're going to be working on identifying, mitigating, communicating risks related to solution and service constraints by making technical trade-offs. And this is potentially going to be the hardest part of the role, the scenarios where you'll be faced with trade-offs that you need to make. And based on your experience and based on your technical depth, you will be capable at making these trade-offs. As I mentioned, ProServe folks tend to dive the deepest out of the roles that I'm discussing today. So oftentimes they serve as mentors on the technical side to internal and customer team members. Both internal members and the customers rely on them to learn on the technical front from them and learn the latest and best practices in implementing technical solutions. Now, the last role that I also want to discuss today, the fourth role, is of a technical instructor. As a technical instructor, you're going to be focused on still working with the customer, but with a slightly different goal. In this case, this is a senior AWS technical instructor role. So again, it's not that introductory level, it's more of a mid-intermediate level of instructor, because above senior, they can also be a principal. And in this case, we don't have any roles currently open for North America, but this particular role that's looking to be filled in Dubai has similarities to what we look for in North America as well. So you're going to be focusing on delivering training content to developers, admins, architects, and various partners of AWS, such as Deloitte, Accenture, PwC, and so on. And the goal is to support adoption and usage of AWS services. I know here it says the infrastructure services, but just AWS services in general would be more accurate. So you're looking to work with a variety of different types of roles and run different workshop-like experiences, courses with with the customers to help them upskill in architecting, in developing, in machine learning, in data analytics. And as part of these workshops, you'll be working with them through hands-on exercises that are developed in the labs. You'll be sharing the use cases and hearing out their use cases, sharing use cases that are specific to their industry to tailor the learning experience to them. And you're going to be perhaps the most focused on learning and mastering the most innovative technology. Of course, ProServe does that to an extent, but ProServe is very, very focused on a particular specialty domain like data analytics, machine learning, security, and so on. As an instructor, technical instructor, you're going to be most focused on going pre-broad, not just focusing on one domain. Now, the domain that's the nearest and dearest to my heart is AI and machine learning, but I also had to dive into other domains like developing, that's focused on software engineering, DevOps, security, data analytics, architecting, and so on. So as a technical instructor, you're looking to absorb as much around what is going on, what's the best practice, how to work with different services, and go as wide as you possibly can so that you can effectively work with folks who have different roles, who are not just data engineers or data scientists, but also folks who are solution architects or folks who are the security folks, analysts, test engineers, and so on. So you want to learn as much as possible as part of being in a technical instructor role. You're going to be focusing on delivering training programs, which could be directly in person with the customer. They could be virtual deliveries. They could be a variety of different experiences helping customers prepare for their certification exams and so on. You can also create customer tailored training plans that is more specific to a given customer and the industry that they're in. And then you're also going to be partnering with some of the other roles that we discussed previously, like technical account managers, solution architects, sometimes with ProServe, as training certification tends to go to the customers sometimes directly, but sometimes also in partnership with some of the other roles that we've discussed previously. You're going to be expected to dive deep and build a domain expertise, either in a particular technology or an industry. So as I mentioned, my specification, my specialty is going to be in AI and machine learning. You can choose a different area to specialize in. You will be working in other domains and other areas as well, but one of the domains is going to be where you specialize in the most and tends to be the one that you enjoy working in the most. You're going to create a global impact or development of curriculum for the latest and innovative technologies. For instance, I previously worked on creating some learning material, some learning content for LLM ops, large language model operations, which was a branch of ML ops. And my goal was to create this long before there was any other learning content on the internet in that domain. So you sometimes look to be one of the first in creating the learning content around how something works long before it becomes mainstream there. And similarly, we recently had some of the other projects where instructors got involved in creating content in something that is very, very cutting edge, that is not widely used perhaps just yet. It's seeing really, really fast adoption, and customers are looking to upskill on how to use some of these services and features. You're going to get very hands-on with the internal projects, such as helping improve the labs. We recently had a project where instructors helped out with that. You can be focused on improving and developing some of the content, building out the different demos for the customers, and like I said, just going deep into improving how we operate as an organization. And then you will also be the advocate at customer events, customer-facing events. So as an instructor, you will likely be working at the big conferences like AWS reInvent. You'll be working at different AWS summits, Reinforce, and so on. So the goal is going to be to be available in person at these different big AWS conferences and be presenting particular material or running a particular workshop with the customer. So this is the role that I've been for about 2.5 years, and so far, and I've really enjoyed it because I always had a huge passion for learning, and it was always kind of something I was doing on the side, organizing particular boot camp or training for others. So transitioning to this role was a great opportunity for me to just double down on one of my passions, which is helping others, as I like to joke, not need me to implement solutions for them, but learn how to fish themselves, how to implement solutions themselves there. Now, when it comes to interviewing at Amazon, it's really helpful to understand what you can expect and what is the best way to prepare for those interviews. Now, one page that's really helpful to review is this interviewing at Amazon page. And the reason it's helpful is because it outlines the high-level process that you may expect to work through, to have to work through. So, of course, you will apply first. If you have some sort of a colleague that you worked with in the past who currently works for AWS, do not go and apply for a role yourself. Instead, ask them if they'd be willing to provide you with a referral. Because if they provide you with a referral, you are going to not have to apply for the role yourself, and referrals sometimes can help in terms of visibility of different applications. Depending on what roles you apply for, the technical roles tend to have some sort of an assessment, some sort of a task that you need to complete that demonstrates your technical background. So if you're applying for ProServe, like me in the past, you're going to be assigned a project to implement a project in your domain that you need to solve ahead of the interview and then be able to talk through the solution and why you've solved it the way you did as part of your interview. If you are applying as a technical instructor, you may be asked to teach a particular content or show how your presentation skills are and how adept you are at answering different technical questions. In general, you're always going to have a phone screen interview first, where you're going to get interviewed over the phone to see if you can pass that first milestone. And then if the interviewer that worked on the phone screen with you provides a recommendation that the organization moves forward with you, then you'll be invited for a much more evolved interview that we call a loop. So a loop consists of, let's call it 5 to 6, in most scenarios, interviews. They tend to be back to back. They're each about 45 minutes long. And as part of the loop, you get interviewed by multiple people that are in different roles. One of them may be your hiring manager, but other interviewers may be just working in different roles in Amazon, because ultimately the idea is that folks who are not just working within the org where you are going to work, but also in the rest of Amazon should be there to provide some observations and take some notes and share some of their thoughts around different candidates. If you end up having 2 phone screens, don't be concerned. That is not uncommon. Some folks just receive 2 phone screens and then go into the loop. Some folks receive one phone screen and then go to the loop. So don't be discouraged if you receive another phone screen. That's not as rare as you may expect. Now, when it comes to preparing for the loop, you're going to find a lot of information on this interview loop page. And again, I'll include all these links for you in the video. So one thing that you want to familiarize with are the leadership principles. And there are 16 leadership principles. So when you get interviewed by those interviewers as part of the loop, you're going to be expected to share your experience through the lens of some of these leadership principles. Now, you can open up the link here to see what all leadership principles are. I'm not going to read all of them for you. I'll just give you a few examples. Customer obsession is the first one. So you may be asked to talk about a time where you went above and beyond for your customer, regardless of who your customer was. Maybe your customer was some internal team, maybe it was an actual external customer of your company. It doesn't matter, but the goal is going to be for you to demonstrate clearly how you went above and beyond, and what did you do, why did you decide that that was crucial, and so on. Ownership, for instance, the next leadership principle will be looking to ask you about a time where you saw that there was something that had to be done, but no one wanted to do it, or no one volunteered to do it, and you showed the ownership, and you helped carry that solution to the end. So it's helpful for you as you prepare for the interview to kind of think about these different leadership principles, and try to, if you want to be really thorough, try and prepare at least one or two stories from your experience that demonstrate each of these leadership principles. That way, you can practice talking about different scenarios and use cases you worked on, and share your experience from the perspective of through the lens of a particular LP that the interviewer may be interested in asking you about. Okay, so make sure you read through all these 16 LPs, because this is a pretty good resource to help you understand what they all are, and then start thinking about how would you tell a story about what you've done in the past and what you've accomplished through the lens of these LPs. Now, I'll caution you, when you talk during these behavioral-based interviews and during the loop, as you talk about leadership principles, make sure you structure your responses in the STAR format. This is going to greatly help interviewer take down notes and take down some data points that you want them to walk away with, that you want them to use to be able to justify why you should be hired into this role. So the STAR format always starts with the situation, what was happening, what was going on, the task, what was the task that you had in that particular scenario, what was your role, and then action, what specific actions have you taken to deliver what specific results, and try to be as specific as possible. You saw ownership is one of the leadership principles. So when you talk about what you've done in your experience, do not say we did this, we did that. Say specifically, what did you do? Because that is going to be very, very clear for the interviewer. What was your impact? What was your role? What actions did you take? Because when we talk in the context of we've done this, we've done that, sometimes it feels potentially arrogant to say I've done that or I've done this, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't make you feel that way. You should feel comfortable saying what you've done specifically, because that is going to help you make sure that the interviewer takes the right notes and that they're able to clearly present to the rest of the hiring team what you've done and what your experience was, and whether they're inclined or not for you to be hired there. So make sure you, aside from practicing telling about your technical and professional experience through the lens of leadership principles, make sure you also practice sharing those stories in the STAR format. The interviewer is going to be really, really glad if you, right off the bat, start doing this without them having to ask you. It's going to make it a lot easier for them to take their notes, and you will notice whatever Amazon interview you go to, there's going to be a lot of note taking. Do not be alarmed by that. As part of the interviews with Amazon, interviewers are required to take a lot of notes and then upload those notes into the system we have for hiring. So if you notice that the interviewer is not talking much while you're sharing your story and they're just typing away, just know that is entirely normal. They're just taking notes. In fact, they will probably tell you up front that, hey, I'm going to be taking a lot of notes here, and that's just going to be normal and expected behavior. Now, aside from this, you'll find some other tips here on how to prepare, especially on the interview day. You want to do the bulk of the preparation before your interview, so you don't have to be stressed out on your interview day. What's also really helpful to familiarize with is how Amazon's culture works. And there are two courses, free courses on Skill Builder. They're going to be pretty brief and walk you through how the culture works at Amazon. So working backwards is going to be one of the crucial aspects of working at Amazon, where you never start with a particular technology or solution. You always start from what is the problem, what needs to be done, and then you slowly step back through that to arrive at the required solution and the implementation. We approach solving all problems by working backwards. So it's helpful if you familiarize that that's how the culture works, so you can also maybe gather some experience through working that way and then talk about it in the interviews, or just, if this is how you've naturally operated, just know how to properly phrase it during the interviews. You can see this is a pre-brief. Training is just 15 minutes long, mostly focuses on what working backwards is and how to do it effectively, how it's done at Amazon. And then the second course that talks about the culture as well, the culture of innovation, is going to be a little bit longer, about an hour long. It's also free, as we can see here. This is going to be, it's about 22 minutes long, so also relatively brief, and it's going to talk about the what is the day one mentality, what is the day one culture. It's practically always focusing on operating as a startup and moving as quickly and being as ambitious as possible. In our case, for serving the customers. So day one mentality is really helpful to understand. I've ran various day one workshops at Amazon as a day one champion, and it's always interesting, even within Amazon, to see how much people like hearing about it and learning about specific examples, specific mechanisms that can be used to maintain that day one culture. So organizations, as they grow, as they become larger, they do not become complacent and lose sight of what led them, what drove them in the early days of the company. So with that, I'm going to start wrapping up. Today, we talked about the 4 different roles. We talked about the solution architects, or SAs. We talked about the technical account managers, or TAMs. And we also talked about the AWS ProServe and technical instructors under training and certification. We've clarified what some similarities and differences are between those 4, so you can choose the path that resonates most with you. And then we dove into what does the interview process look like, what are some tips for you to study and prepare for your interview and maximize your odds of getting hired. I'll include the links for everything we reviewed here together in the down below in the comment section. And if you think of any questions, feel free to leave any questions. If you would like to see something else for me to make a video on, just leave a comment of that. I'd love to do that when I find some available time. And thank you all for joining me today.